Welcome to Gamblin and Ramblin, a weekly show where we react and rant about the weekend in sports betting. I'm Tim Kalinowski, the guy on the other screen in New York. He's Charlie DiSturco. Follow us on the Action app, Action YouTube channel, Action Network HQ on Twitter and TikTok. Charlie, there's only one NFL game left. What'd you think of the weekend?
This weekend was an absolute stinker. Oh my goodness. I was expecting the best. I was telling everyone, look out, these games are going to be entertaining. They're going to be fun. And on the second drive of the game, Brock Purdy tore his UCL, Josh Johnson got concussed. And then I don't even want to get into that Bengals game yet of what happened and what went down and just the mess that was going on there. I mean, I was so excited. And listen, the NFL, they could do whatever they want. They could put up a 3-0 NFC Championship and I'd watch it and I'd watch it again and again and again. But it was horrible. I had an awful time. I don't know about you. At least I hit most of my bets. That's like the only silver lining.
Charlie, I think you bring up a good point in that there's something to be said when you have to tell other people like how great of a weekend it's going to be, how great the games are, and you feel almost like responsible for them falling flat on their face, or at least depends on when we think of the second game. But still, I'm telling people, tune in, make sure you tune in. 3 o'clock, then 6:30. What a great Sunday we have in store. I was so pumped. I had, sometimes I have to work early mornings on Monday. I didn't have to. I'm like, I'm going to sleep in. I had the whiskey going, the wine going. I was in for an absolute treat of a day. And boy, was I unsatisfied. It was garbage.
Yeah, it was so bad. And at least the same thing where you feel responsible with it, at least I gave out like winners and like I told my buddies, take the Eagles, take the Chiefs. Like, did I deserve the Eagles? Like, we can get into that because they were literally putting Christian McCaffrey in quarterback for some time, or Purdy, who couldn't even throw the football. I mean, it was just so bad. I was off Monday too, so I was like so excited. I was like, I could drink with my buddies. Like, one of my buddies came in from New Jersey. I was like, all right, let's sit down. We get to watch football. I haven't been able to do this like all year because I've been producing the touchdown show. Mm-hmm. I've been doing Bet What Happens Live. I did the first game. Thank God I did the first game of Bet What Happens Live producing with Nick and Sean. And hear them break it down and see how they do everything is so cool. And also the benefit is that I didn't even watch like the second half because by the time I got to my buddies, it was like halfway through the fourth quarter. And San Francisco's just running the football, not even trying to do like trick plays or put McCaffrey at quarterback. Jawan Jennings, he's a former 5-star quarterback recruit. And he didn't even take a snap at quarterback. Like, I don't know what they were doing there. I think they kind of just rolled over and died. Like, at the worst, what are you doing? At the worst, put McCaffrey or Jawan Jennings in. Like, what's the worst that can happen? They throw an interception? Like,
I mean, it's cooked at that point. Like, we both know, like, you're not beating the Eagles with that situation. This isn't like they're playing Bowling Green. Like, this isn't a MAC game, even though it might have felt like it. But
Denver putting Kendall Hinton like a few years ago. And,
I know.
It didn't work out.
They had a week to prepare for it.
And then you throw Jawan Jennings in there, and what's going to happen? They're going to be like, who is this wide receiver that can throw a spiral?
No, they're not going to be doing that because if he actually could push the ball down the field, he'd be playing quarterback.
Well, maybe Shanahan didn't know. Like, maybe it's a lack of prep at this point because they're handing the ball off and like running these end arounds, and of course they're stacking the box. You could try anything. I don't know. I would have tried pull every trick out of I would have had Purdy throw left-handed.
Listen. I actually sympathize with Shanahan because think of them doing their game prep and the fact that they're on their third string quarterback, right? And think of them getting ready for the Eagles or even at any other point in the season. Do you think Shanahan, I'm sure across Shanahan's mind, well, what happens if Purdy gets hurt? Okay, we got Johnson, but then what happens then? Don't you think, how many times in your life you say, well, if we get that far, we're just cooked anyway?
No, that definitely cooked, but like, I don't know. The Eagles did not play well. Like, it wasn't a great game from them. Like, they let the San Francisco stick around with a fourth string quarterback. I think at that point you try anything you can. Like, I mean, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I mean, it's gonna not work, and it's not gonna work if you run the ball every single time against them and just run out the clock in the fourth quarter. Like, you might as well have tried something. And they did try to get a little, fancy there, but it didn't work because everything's in the backfield rather than trying to push the ball downfield.
I agree. You know what? Like, sure, we can get on Shanahan for not being. You can get on Shanahan for not being prepared about that. But I have a way bigger problem with his not challenging that Smith play on the first drive. Yeah. Like this is where it's so tough. It's like anyone who watches football, when they see a receiver get up and tell everybody to sprint to the line like that, can smell what's going on. No, like am I crazy here? Like no one actually. They're not running like 2014 Oregon's offense here. Like, hey, let's get to the line and snap this thing. Like, it was pretty obvious what was going on, and no one from San Francisco could be like, yeah, let's just throw a challenge here. No.
Yeah, I that big of a moment, I think you have to. It's like one of those scary things. Is the first drive of the game, and you're like, okay, they made this 4th down catch. I think you have to throw it just because, if it's an incomplete pass, then it's all of a sudden turns the game on its head, and San Francisco starts around that midfield. It is interesting though, because like when I saw the play, I thought it was a catch. Like I thought he caught it, and then they showed a replay, and it looked like he caught it. And it wasn't until like a minute and a half later, after they had snapped the play, that I was like, oh wow, like this 4th angle of the thing shows that Smith fumbled the ball or juggled it down on the ground. But I think that it's one of those things that's like, are you willing to risk the chance that you just lose a timeout in the first half? And I think you do in this magnitude of a playoff game, especially in the first half. Like, it's not like the second half where like these 3 timeouts are crucial in case it's a close game. Like the first half, timeouts matter, but not as big as like, when you're trying to stop the clock in the 4th quarter and all that.
Yeah, hindsight's 2020, but it when you said that you couldn't tell, well, it's someone's job to tell. It's someone's job to do that and be on that.
Shanahan said that they didn't have the replay that everyone saw the 3rd time around.
What do you think Shanahan's going to say? Oh, what do you think Shanahan's going to say? Oh yeah, we just we didn't see it. Like, of course he's going to say something like that.
It looked like a catch. I don't know. I feel bad for Shanahan in general for this whole thing. I thought it was a catch on the field. Obviously it was not. Regardless, like maybe Purdy's not put in that situation where he tears his UCL like literally the next drive, like 5 plays later. But it was just like one of those things that I was like, I don't know what I would have done. I think in real time, maybe you call it just because it's the playoffs and like it's the NFC Championship, but it's an extremely difficult decision, and I don't like fault him either way for it.
Before we go to the other game, I'm gonna do this is the blindsiding Charlie with a question of the week. If you have a team right now, like take anything into consideration, 1 year, 10 years, whatever it may be. Your team, who's the head coach?
For the next, how long? For next year's season or?
Sure, next year's season. Yep.
Probably Shanahan.
Okay.
I'm between him and Andy Reid, right? Like I think Andy Reid is probably like the genius head coach that like, every year I can count on him for being ready and having the prep and all that. And I think Shanahan is the most impressive head coach, and especially for the next, like, if you were telling me 5 years, Shanahan, 10 years, Shanahan. Next year, I think I lean Andy Reid just because Shanahan is a genius, and what he's done with the fact that he got to the NFC Championship with a 3rd string quarterback and like remain competitive till like halftime with a 4th string quarterback is so impressive. But I think when push comes to shove and I need someone to win me a game, I'm trusting Andy Reid to get done.
Yeah. Okay. I think I lean Andy Reid as well. When I was laying in bed last night thinking of asking you this question, it was like Andy Reid. I thought Shanahan, and then the wild card was Sean Payton.
He's been out for a few years. That's not a bad one though. I mean, he's probably like top 5 on my list if I had the, like if I was starting a team next year, he's probably top 5. And I want him I would love him, the head coach of like the New York Jets. But like obviously Salah's going to stay there for a while.
I would have asked our producer Hutton what he thought, but I know he would have said Harbaugh anyway. So,
he's diehard Harbaugh. Yeah. Not that you're gonna ask him or entertain this question.
You don't even need to ask him. Yeah, like we know his answer. Obviously Harbaugh.
No Harbaugh. Fire Harbaugh.
What? I can't hear who that is. I don't know.
That was hire Harbaugh, right? I think
Harbaugh. Yeah, anybody else can hire him if they want. Take him off my hands, please.
Well, okay. Moving on to the next game. This game is the NFL rigged game. People not happy. I wasn't happy about this game. Again, same thing with the whole weekend. I thought that it just wasn't a good display of football. The what we spend our entire life doing, watching football, our entire year preparing for is Super Bowl, national championship. Like, for that to be what was the, I don't know. I always think of it this: if aliens came down and they said we're gonna watch one weekend of football, like normally I would choose, hey, conference championship, pretty good weekend. I wouldn't show them this conference championship weekend.
No, this was a very interesting game. There's a lot in the way that it had to end with, like, you know, a push out of bounds, which was a penalty. Like, he was out of bounds. It just stinks that that's the way that this entire game had to end. Like, like if you said these aliens are sitting on the couch with you and they're like, this is how it ends. Like, yeah, like the game was pretty entertaining, aside from like that 5-minute span in the third quarter where, you know, no one knew what was going on. I didn't think the game was poorly reffed outside of that little span, but the way that the game ended, and like, I feel for Osai, because like that was just a brutal way for the game. Like, it was, I can't say brutal enough. Like, it was just so tough to watch him like break down on the sideline. CBS is just zooming in on him instead of the Chiefs celebrating, and like they lose because of a field goal, even though one play doesn't decide it, and they let Mahomes stay in this game.
I think it's very unsatisfying, like unfulfilling, for when the game ends on like an unforced error. I think that's like part of it too. That's part of all the things we're talking about. A starting quarterback gets injured. A game ends on an unforced error. The refs were kind of incompetent. At least were iffy. They didn't really take control of the game. Like, all those things that should have been filtered out by the time we got to a conference championship game, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. But I think that, like, it's almost an easy cop out to say, oh, it's the refs' fault, but it's also like, you know, aside from like that, the 4-minute span where the refs didn't like stop the third down and replayed the third down, then they got the first down on a penalty. The Chiefs still punted that football on that drive. So it really, like, maybe it took a minute or two off the clock, but like, you know, if you're the Bengals, you don't start and have 0 yards in the first quarter. Like, you can't blame the refs. You can't, or like, if you're a Bengals better, like, you can't blame the refs for that horrible display for the first quarter. You can't blame the refs for your like player shoving Mahomes out of bounds when he's running to out of bounds. Like, you just let him go. I know it's a bang play, but like at the end of it all, you can't blame anyone for how this game ended. It was brutal how the game ended, and like we said, unforced errors are always the worst to do. It's different if it's like in a regular season game, but the fact that the Super Bowl's decided because of that rather than going to overtime, which it felt like it was going to overtime, and we were going to get Mahomes versus Burrow, this new overtime rule where if you score a touchdown, you still have a second chance. Like that, I was so excited for like the possibility of that.
Right. And, like, you could smell that coming. You could smell that coming, and then for it to again end on like someone double faulting, it's like, oh, right. Like I wasn't. I mean, I had the Kansas City, so like I was happy. A lot of people in the room I was with had Cincinnati. It wasn't great, but like, you know, sometimes you just get a little luck on your side or something. Yeah, well, you can use it because you had a bad stretch of luck for sure. There's like, people don't understand. There's so many people online talking about NFL rigged. It's a script. They send out a script. It might as well be, you know, a school play. Everyone's just reading their lines. What do you say to those people?
Bro, you are a joke. That is what I say to them. This is an absurd comment to make that the NFL is rigged, because take a step back and think about it. Would the two markets that are competing in the AFC Championship be Kansas City and Cincinnati? Like, no, that's not the fact that New York, Atlanta, Chicago, they're mediocre almost year after year after year. The NFL would do something to make sure that they were competitive. You think Dallas would have lost to San Francisco if the NFL was rigged? They would want Dallas to be in the Super Bowl or competing in the NFC Championship year after year, not be losing in the wild card or like the second round, or not even making the playoffs. Like, these big markets, they would make sure that this would happen. How about Trevor Lawrence? Would he be a New York Jet? They would have had the Jets purposely lose to the Rams in that final week of the season that ended up ultimately giving them Zach rather than Trevor. Like, the NFL, if it was rigged, it would have put the number one quarterback in the New York market. Like, it's just one of those things. Like, would Jacksonville come back from 27-0 to beat the Chargers? I don't know. LA's a bigger market. Would have had bigger fans the next week. Tom Brady, would he have lost in the first round and put up no points? Would they not have tried to do something with him? Like, would he would probably be playing Mahomes in the Super Bowl again if the NFL was rigged? Like, there's so many things. I could keep going. Like, it's like,
no, I agree with you.
It's these big market teams would be playing, not like San Francisco and Cincinnati. Like, Cincinnati would not have Burrow in if this NFL was rigged, and Kansas City would not be this good.
No, and my thing is too, I wouldn't want to entertain it, but so many people like talk about it, might just because like I'm in the like TikTok vortex, but people are obsessed with saying that. And I would say, like, parallel to what you said, if the NFL is rigged, they picked some pretty bad scripts for the weekend. Like, they picked the wrong ones. Like, these should have been cut up and thrown on the floor. Like, one of the games that's over, 10 minutes in. Yeah, that's really good for the NFL. Like, that's definitely a good product. Like, it can't be rigged if it was that bad. If it was like, the Jags Chargers game, that's a good case because that was unbelievable. But like, that's what I'm saying. For people to say that it was so underwhelming again. If the NFL is rigged, they wouldn't have Romo be one of the narrators of this rigged film.
Yeah, Greg Olsen would be on the second game, not Romo.
Oh, I mean, like, from the dysfunction with the officiating in terms of the whole clock thing, no one knows what's going on, to a quarterback that's hurt in the first 2 minutes of the game, to Romo screaming in my ear. How is that a good scripted product?
Oh, Jim, I can't believe it, Jim. Yeah, no, it was an awful weekend. It's also just like, I don't know. It's like, take a step back and think if the NFL was actually rigged, like there would have been a complete different, like it would have gone a completely different way. Like they wouldn't have had an awful first game, and they wouldn't have had a second game where it was 20-20 that like there's, aside from like a 3-minute span, that game was not that poorly officiated, and like the Bengals would not have had 0 yards in the first. Like, it's just like one of those things that's like, it's just pretty aggravating. I like the people that think it's rigged. It's just people that are sore losers that like, probably weren't complaining for their Cincinnati Bengals money line refund from FanDuel because they lost the game and they think the refs really rigged it, even though it was their own player that hit Mahomes out of bounds and their own team that put up 0 yards in the first quarter and 6 points before halftime. So
if the NFL was rigged, they would make sure that CBS had the first game because you need an immediate, like, full-on, you need an immediate other crew to recover from Romo. Romo ending the weekend is like, I'm like literally still anxious from Romo just screaming in my ear. Like, I need a full game afterwards to be like, okay, it doesn't have to be like this. Not because when I look back, I'm like, I think all NFL games are like that, and it's not true. It just warps my brain.
That's how we are. Me and my roommate are with Charles Davis. Like, we don't want him. Anytime he's on with like Iron Eagle, it's like, the Jets drew him again. The Jets drew him again, and like that's the main thing on our TV. Like Red Zone's obviously on and stuff like that. But the Jets game gets front and center, and it's just like every time, like, stop. Like, it's just, imagine if like him and Romo like randomly got called up to call the Super Bowl. It's like, oh, random deal inked. It would, I think you would pull your hair out.
Exactly. And also, it is not good business for the NFL to have the Monday and now into Tuesday conversation be about officiating. Like that's not in their right mind either. Why would they want that? That's not good for the game. And officiating kind of took over the weekend. And again, I hate talking about it, but it's just so prevalent. It's so relevant. And we had the LeBron and Celtics meltdown, which I don't know if you had any action on that game. I didn't, but I mean, just classic LeBron, classic NBA. Everything that we say is wrong about the league.
Yeah, it was. Dude, I didn't have any action on the game. I did have friends that had like Lakers, but like, just like watching that game, it was like, are you kidding me? Like, how do you not call? Like, I get the whole, it's in Boston or like, it's a bang bang play, but like watching the replay was like mind numbing to me because it was just like. Because I already think the NBA is like the worst product in all of sports.
Oh, it's terrible.
And the fact that the reffing took another just horrific level. Like, I know you're a Boston fan, but like Tatum clearly hacks him. Like, you see the hand go there. Arguably the best technical foul that was ever given out. Beverly, with the camera walking over to the ref.
So
and,
good.
You see this? Because it was so horrific. They deserved, like, and it set them back, and they obviously lost, and it sucks because, like, you give them a chance in overtime, and obviously the Lakers end up losing this chance in overtime because they're not the better team. But they had the win in their hand. LeBron, storybook, like, gets to win it on like free throws after the Celtics make this insurmountable comeback. Pat Beverly was playing out of his mind at the end of the game. Just to watch that was just so aggravating. And the NBA, I think you could convinced me that like maybe there's some shady stuff going on. Because
No,
there's also
absolutely.
a documentary that came out where someone did do it. So like there's prior history, and
No,
it's
100%.
shady. It's shady, and also the worst product in all of sports. So like
Oh,
I
worst
barely
product.
watched my time with it. It was just there was
Terrible.
nothing on at like I don't know, was it a Thursday night? I was like, or like a Friday, or whatever day it was. It was like there was not really that many sports. Saturday, I think, but like there wasn't that much on. And I was like, I'll watch the NBA. I'll watch the end. It's a close game and awful.
Let me ask you this. So we agreed that the Lakers got screwed. What's your like tipping point for when you'll blame the refs, or do you blame the refs? Are you someone who, because I don't like to do it.
I'll rarely ever blame the refs. I think that if you blame the refs, like you don't understand that like it's an entire game that's being played in which like one or two minuscule calls don't go your way. Like then it's like don't put yourself in that position to be there. Like they could have played better. It depends. I think there are extreme circumstances. I think that this Lakers Celtics game teeters on that line. Like I have a line where I kind of like it'll push me over the edge. That missed call was horrible, and it wasn't like one of those like, oh, maybe he like barely got tapped. Like LeBron got hit so hard the ball came out of his hand and they didn't call it. So that's where I like kind of lean toward like maybe it's the refs' fault. But again, like I don't like to assign blame to the refs because it's also like not like it's an entire game in which you had so many chances. Like Pat Beverly missed a free throw like just like 30 seconds before, and like if he makes that, this is not even a discussion.
You and I said this the other day, like much like when you gamble, there's a certain level of understanding that refs are humans and they can mess up your bet. And there's a certain level of understanding when you go play a sport that the refs can have an impact on the game you're playing. Like, I think both of you, everyone who in their right mind, and like, again, what a horrible living experience if all you do is whine about refs. Like that's going to be a horrible living experience, like day to day, just blaming refs, blaming other people for everything. But there's a certain level of consenting to, I understand what the terms and conditions are. Refs can mess it up. Okay.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Yeah. It's like same thing with like, if you think about player props and injuries, like it's like when you bet a player prop, you take the chance of an injury. If he gets hurt and you have the under, you win. So like it's you have to take those into account, and it's just absurd that like people focus on like one or two plays. Like we discussed this yesterday, the New Orleans pass interference that wasn't called. Like that game, like they had multiple chances after. I still teeter on that line because it was such a blatantly missed call. But it's also like there are plays where you could get hung up on. You could be upset. Like was I upset? Yeah, I was upset that they didn't make that call. Was I upset at the LeBron call? Yeah, I was upset, and I tweeted out the NBA is a joke. Mostly because it's a joke in and of itself. The fact that this ball was missed is another one. But like, I'm not blaming the refs for how this game ended. I just think the NBA is a poorly run organization and league.
Yeah, I completely agree. We're gonna wrap up here. We have, less than 14 days now out from the Super Bowl. Do you have a storyline, something that you need to find out between then and now that'll help you decide who to bet on in this game?
Yeah, I got the biggest thing I think is the Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers health. Like this is the biggest thing that we have to really monitor. Juju Smith-Schuster, McCole Hardman, and Kadarius Toney all left to the point where Marcus Kemp was playing minutes for the Kansas City Chiefs receiving corps. So like I need to monitor that because I lean Kansas City, and I think that if their receivers are healthy and you're going to give me points with Mahomes, I'm going to take those points. So that's where I'm kind of at. And also, if you look at the Eagles and the teams that they've beaten since week 16, they lost to Dak Prescott, lost to Andy Dalton, beat Davis Webb barely, had a bye, beat Daniel Jones, and beat Brock Purdy, Josh Johnson combo. So like the Eagles have not really proven themselves over the last bit. So if you're going to give me the points, I'm going to take them.
I tend to agree. And the biggest storyline for me is avoiding go Birds for 2 weeks. How am I going to be able to avoid go Birds? You're just mad that the Birds won. You're just mad. You're mad. It was go Birds. Yeah, no, I'm mad because I wasted my time. I'm mad because I wanted to sit down and watch something good, and it was a waste. I don't care if the freaking Birds won or lost. Just stop. Go Birds.
Dude, New England fan, a New England sports fan is complaining about Philadelphia sports fans, man. The two worst sports fans on the planet.
Oh my God. I think Philly's like, I appreciate them because they care so much. Go Birds.
Fly fly, Eagles fly to the land of victory.
Okay, I'm done. Be sure to follow us.
Birds.
Go Birds! Be sure to follow us in the Action app on Twitter as well. I'm at TimmyCal12 on Twitter, Kalinowski12 in the app. Charlie, how about you?
Tim, you almost got so screwed up on what your handle was because of the Go Birds. I'm at DiSturco, Twitter and TikTok and the Action Network app. And also, for your refunders out there, you didn't get it for Brock Purdy's torn UCL, so suck it.
Nope, didn't get it. Did get it. That's a wrap. Go Birds!